what's up, everybody? It's a Tuesday. In case you didn't know, I know during this lockdown, it's like nobody ever knows what day it is. But today's Tuesday, and I've been bringing you guys sort of during this whole quarantine period. Been trying to bring you some of my coolest friends that are doing like this awesome stuff with life or music or whatever. We've talked to music teachers. We've talked to guitar players. We talked to fiddle players. Today we actually have another guitar player. But he's not like he's not a generally an electric player. He does play electric, but he is a classically trained guitar player who's kind of taken, man, when I first met Nathan, he was in school getting his master's degree in classical guitar. And then he was thinking about like being a cop or something. And then decided, you know what? I think I am going to do this guitar thing, but not quite the way that anybody expected. And it completely blew up. So we're going to talk to Nathan about what he's doing in his musical career, what's happening in life, and how do you make money playing music and not hanging out in bars. So this guy's got all the answers, man. Nathan Mills, Beyond the Guitar. What's happening, brother?
What's up, Matt? Always good to catch up, man.
Yeah. I think the last time I was at your house was maybe, gosh, a couple years ago.
Yeah, I think you were coming through Richmond for like a car or something, right?
I'm always coming through somewhere. I'm never going anywhere. I'm just going through places.
Yeah. You've traveled more probably in the last couple of years than I have my entire life.
Yeesh. Yeah, but you got like 18 trillion followers now or something. What's the number?
Well, not quite that. So now it's going to sound underwhelming, but I think it's like 370,000 subscribers on YouTube right now.
That's crazy, man. Congratulations.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's been, I mean, it's been a slow burn, but there's peaks and valleys, and there've been, things that have really popped here and there. So, it's definitely been quite a ride so far.
Yeah, so talk to people a little bit about your trajectory. I guess you started playing guitar when you were a kid, right?
Yeah, I started, parents had me starting playing piano, and then just, as a kid, the guitar, especially, I mean, this is a conversation maybe for another day, but I feel like the guitar isn't as romanticized now as it was back then. But I just, the idea of the guitar was so cool to me, and I didn't even know why. It was just cool. And so I convinced them to get me guitar lessons, and then, went through high school doing the whole rocker thing and decided I want to pursue music in college. And at that point, for most schools, your trajectory is either going to be jazz guitar or classical guitar. And I didn't have any investment really in jazz. And so I was looking into what even classical guitar was. I wasn't even familiar with what that was at the time, and ended up falling in love with that style and how you could really make one guitar sound like two or more with this finger style technique, and ended up getting a bachelor's degree and then master's degree in classical guitar performance. And that's when I met you, was getting a master's degree. And it was funny that you mentioned, that's that whole phase of my life after getting my master's. I went into this like deep burnout where I was just going to do a 180 and like forsake music and go, into law enforcement. And so that was a whole thing in and of itself. But ended up coming out of that burnout with this idea to start building what kind of Beyond the Guitar has evolved into, which is making classical guitar arrangements of music from movies, TV shows, and video games, and putting them in music videos that I produce myself for the most part, and put them up on the interwebs.
Yeah. So I think when you first started doing that, were you posting to YouTube too, or was it mostly Facebook when you first started?
So I started on YouTube and Facebook kind of at the same time. Facebook was at the time where my videos first started popping off a little bit more. Whatever the way that the algorithm was configured back then, I guess because of how shareable content is on Facebook, when I would do something that kind of hit that nerve, that very shareable nerve, it would take off on Facebook well before the algorithms of YouTube picked it up. So I did, yeah, I started at the same time, but things started moving a little bit faster on Facebook and then kind of flip flopped as algorithms changed and do as they do.
Yeah, I think maybe the first one that I remember just exploding for you, and maybe it wasn't the first one, but the first one I remember really hitting was that Star Wars medley.
Yeah, well, and that's actually the first video I did, which it was interesting. I don't remember the timeline exactly. I think I posted it on YouTube when I first started because I didn't know how all this stuff worked. So when I first started, I would post to YouTube and then I would just share the YouTube link on Facebook, which really is a no-no because Facebook doesn't want to play with YouTube. Right. You know, Facebook wants people on Facebook. But at the time, I didn't understand that. And so I think what happened is I ended up resharing that Star Wars video later natively on Facebook. And that's when it really took off. But I joke all the time about it because one of the things I always recommend for people who are looking into a career in, YouTube or anything really is to like look back at people's first videos whenever they first start out. Because that's one of my favorite things to do is to see like how people's content has progressed and evolved, because generally people will look at what you're doing right now and feel overwhelmed, like, oh, like I can't do that because they're just starting out. But you got to remember, like everybody. But I feel like what I did was I did kind of a bait and switch for my YouTube audience, because that very first video, that Star Wars video, I had a team of guys, videographers, really talented guys, film that for me. And then they weren't available for my next video and I had to do it myself and I didn't know what I was doing at all. And so then it's just like me in my room with like no lights, no nothing, and it just looks garbage. But yeah, so I've kind of learned as I went from there, as lots of people do.
Yeah. I mean, I think people forget like the early Lindsey Sterling videos that she shot by herself. She's had over 1 billion views on YouTube, but her early stuff was pretty sketchy.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's just so fun to do that. Like, I mean, I literally, whenever I find somebody that I really admire, I discover a new artist or new type of content creator, that really is one of the first things I'll do. I'll filter their videos by the oldest and go back. And you also get to find out who's like ashamed of their older content and clearly has like deleted it. Or made it private. But a lot of people keep it there. And yeah, I mean, Lindsey Sterling, I mean, you look at her stuff now and it's like, crazy, the production value.
Yeah. So it's, I remember seeing one of your early videos, and this was maybe before Beyond the Guitar too. You had shot some really nice stuff in a church with some of your classical guitar stuff, some of your master's level repertoire. So this isn't exactly your first time being on camera.
Yeah, I dabbled with it in like undergrad and in grad school. I was fortunate to have that particular video. I had a roommate in college for undergrad who was a cinema major. And so every once in a while I would kind of bribe him into filming some stuff for me. So yeah, I was able to come into it with a little bit of knowledge. But not to the extent that that's always kind of one of my recommendations as well for people is, I think as musicians, we get so caught up in honing our craft, the musical aspect, that we leave out this whole important element of how to put that out into the world. Especially, I think people are seeing that more now as we're all forced into this digital space, knowing how to record your own sound and to film yourself and edit that and navigate the social media waters. And so that stuff wasn't really on my radar in college when it really should have been, because that's just such a big part of the music industry now and making a living in music, no matter what your career looks like, whether you are gigging or touring or, just making content online. All of it has to live in this online world and social media world in some capacity, and that involves making content and knowing how to do that.
Yeah, you talked about, early on you were learning about the algorithms, and honestly it's an evergreen process, right? Because they're always changing the algorithms on us. And it's not like they call their top producers and go, "Hey Nathan, you're one of our big guns. We're about to change the algorithm to do this or to do that," right? So I mean, you feel like you spend a fair amount of your time shooting at a moving target, right?
Yeah, it's that talking back about like Facebook, right? Like, Facebook really popped for me back in the day. Now it does pretty much nothing. And it was like an overnight switch. They flipped the switch. It was I think it was sometime maybe late 2018 when they did it, or I don't remember exactly when, but it was they decided to prioritize personal pages again, right? And they made it to where artist pages or any type of Facebook page rather than a personal page just appeared lower in the news feeds, unless of course you paid Zuckerberg to have it boosted a little bit. And so yeah, I saw like a night and day difference in traffic just from that. And in the first place, nobody's going to be really upfront about how the algorithm works anyway, because they don't want people to be able to abuse it or manipulate it. So you're kind of shooting at a moving target that you also can't really see very clearly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the other piece too is that I've got some friends that are huge celebrities with millions of subscribers and hundreds of thousands of followers on Instagram or Facebook, but they're not monetizing any of this. So it's like it's the opposite of being rich and famous. It's like it's being famous and broke.
Right.
So how have you figured out? I mean, you're making your complete living right now by playing the guitar. You got a wife and kids. You're buying houses. I mean, I've seen all the Ferraris and stuff you got sitting out back.
But I'm really proud of this bookshelf behind me.
He's got this banging minivan. So, how have you figured out how to monetize some of this stuff? Because, we can be flinging out videos onto Facebook all day, but, Facebook don't pay.
Right. Yeah, I think it does really start with building that kind of relationship capital between you and your audience. Because, if people aren't buying into what you're doing, I feel like there's a discrepancy between like somebody, might think what you're, oh man, that's a cool video. And then they move on versus somebody who's really bought in, it's that, there's that 1,000 true fans concept where, you can, if you can in this entire world, if you can find 1,000 people who are just so sold on what you're doing that they're willing to show that support in the form of, some type of monetary compensation in the form of like, whether it's $10 a month based on like buying an album or buying merch or Patreon or anything like that. If you can find those 1,000 diehards, you can make a really good living doing this, and so you don't have to be chasing the millions. So that's still easier said than done to get 1,000 people that are really bought in. But that's the first focus, is finding people that are totally sold on what you're doing. And so I think one mistake that people make is they focus on the monetization too soon, because then it just kind of people can feel that, and it doesn't really feel sincere, and so that is that tough call where you need to make money and you want to make money, but you kind of have to hold off a little bit until you have people that are like waiting and chomping at the bit to like jump in with you in some capacity. And then beyond there, I think it's a matter of diversifying as much as possible, because of things like changing algorithms and global pandemics and things that happen. Having as many different revenue streams is so crucial for musicians and people, especially in this digital age, because something could happen to where YouTube ad revenue dries up because advertisers are pulling out and not spending as much money because of things that are going on in the world. And people that put all their eggs in that YouTube ad revenue basket are going to be hurting, So I think that's the biggest thing. And so the monetary routes that I've kind of gone through, it breaks down between, YouTube ad revenue is a part of it, but that's a very kind of a slow burn, because really it doesn't account for much until you're getting hundreds of thousands and millions of views. YouTube ad revenue, Patreon, that's a big one for me and for many people. And that's where you go into that. You're reaching out to those diehards who love what you do and are willing to support it in return for like cool rewards and stuff like that. So that's been a huge part for me. Things like Spotify and, album downloads. I actually don't offer any type of physical CDs or anything like that. I'm fortunate enough to get enough streams across all those different platforms to where that does start to factor into to becoming a big part of my income. I do like sheet music and tabs sales. And I teach, guitar lessons, whether online, well, now all online, or in my private studio. And I just recently launched too it's called the Arrangers Academy, where it's a very niche thing, but I'm teaching people how to make guitar arrangements like I do. So it's not just teaching them guitar, it's teaching them how to, listen to, Star Wars music and adapt that to be played on one guitar. And so that's like a membership site. And so that's another revenue stream. And so I think a lot of it comes down to being creative and not just relying on, ad revenue and hoping for that, or not just relying on brand deals, and getting creative with it and diversifying has been really big for me.
Yeah, I think part of it too is that you've got to have a product that people are excited about, right?
Right.
And you've got the product that you've got that pretty much, and I don't know if anybody's sort of doing the copycat thing now. I'm sure they are. But when you first started doing this, you were the first one that I knew of that was saying, hey, I want to take popular music, movie themes, scores, video games, and all this stuff, and put this to classical guitar. I hadn't seen anybody else doing that.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to say I was the first, but no, I definitely wasn't. There were more. It was more in the steel string kind of fingerstyle guitar world, which, I mean, it's very much similar territory, and people who don't really know what they're listening for might not really tell the difference. But I was definitely one of the first that really went hard specifically in this more like classical guitar technique route, and with the actual classical guitar. No, so I wasn't the first, but I'd like to think that I did have some advantages coming from like a lot of the people who are doing it. And there are some guys out there that are, have much larger followings than me doing it. They've been doing it for a long time. But one thing that I was able to bring to the table was that I did have this background with, a master's degree in classical guitar performance. So I was, fortunate to be able to spend all this time cultivating this technique and, all the theory and ear training involved that equipped me to be able to make some cool arrangements that maybe helped push the envelope a little bit for what might have already been out there.
Yeah, that's the other thing is not only do you have a relatively unique idea, but you got the chops and the skills to pull it off, and then the social media savvy to sort of navigate a changing world, and then the work ethic. Maybe talk about that. What does your standard day look like? I mean, I know you're home with a wife and kids and all that, and it would be pretty easy to just, I'm taking Tuesday off. But, you put out an insane amount of material. And just seeing the number of videos that you come out with, and I know how long it takes to arrange these things and to put the tabs together and to edit the video and to the concepts. And, there's a lot there in managing these huge social media followings. What's a day look like for you?
Yeah, so I kind of structure my weeks depending on the current project. So my current schedule is a music video every other week. I tried that every week for a while, and yeah, I mean, it's a lot of work. The way that my schedule is currently, I do technically spend only that 1 week on that music video. So from concept to finish, it's done in that week. But I decided to pull back to every other week for that so that I could focus on building this kind of other side of the brand, the instructional side of it. So the current structure is every other week for music videos, every other week still kind of alternating that with instructional videos, although I am getting into a stride to where I'm starting. The goal is to hit every week for instructional videos. And then beyond that, there's some kind of behind the scenes content for like Arrangers Academy stuff, and just launched a podcast as well. So yeah, I tend to be a little ambitious about what I can put out, and I am really notoriously bad at schedules. So all this to say, like, I try to put out a lot of content, but I am not the best at sticking with the schedule. So I just want to kind of put that disclaimer out there. But so usually, like, let's say if it's a music video week, Monday, I dedicate pretty much the entire day to arranging, whatever it is going to be, so I pick a tune. Lots of times it's based on what's, if there's a new movie that's come out or a new video game or what's currently hot right now. And if there's nothing that's really popping right now, I'll go back and I have a running list of things that people request a lot or things that I just personally really want to explore. And I just spend that day listening to that track and digesting it and just going through and just navigating what that's going to look like on the guitar, just the whole arranging process. And so that usually takes all of Monday and some into Tuesday, and then I'll send that off to my publisher, Music Notes, to publish it. And then I spend the next day and a half, couple days just practicing it, just, boots on the ground, grinding away, trying to get it under my fingers as quickly as possible so that I can then film it or record it. So I'll usually record it on Thursday night, usually, because that's working from home with kids upstairs. It's been, having to record audio is always a bit of a challenge. So you need kind of things to be quiet. So lots of times I end up doing that later at night after the kids go to bed. And then throughout that kind of recording process, I've kind of gotten it tentatively memorized so that I can then film the video. And so what I do to have multiple angles and things like that in my videos, I do like, what is common in lots of times with music videos is I pre-record the audio and play along with it. So which actually with classical guitar presents its own challenges because I don't record to a click track intentionally, right? Part of the appeal of the this style is that you can play with this rubato and have some free form in the rhythm. It can kind of ebb and flow and breathe. And so I have to be very, very aware of like, okay, well, how much time did I take at the end of this phrase? So yeah, it presents its own challenges. But so then generally on Fridays, I'll spend the day filming it, doing multiple takes with different angles, and then editing it and getting it out to patrons who get early access the day before, and then putting it out on Saturday. So yeah, usually like a whole week dedicated to one music video.
Wow. And then I guess during the week, you're sort of in between working on the guitar stuff, you're managing these social media accounts. I don't know, if people don't have big followings, you don't realize how big a time suck that can be. I mean, it's hours and hours and hours every week just managing these followings.
Yeah, you really have to make judgment calls on where you spend your time, because that's one of the challenges, is that there's this discrepancy between being busy and being productive. And so especially with this never-ending world of social media where there's always more I could do, right? Like I could respond to every single comment on every platform, and like, it's a good thing to do, and I would like to be able to do that, but is it more important for me to do that and not be able to put out the content that people are really waiting for. And so you do have to kind of make these judgment calls on how deep am I going to go this route. And so, like I've turned off, like I don't have notifications on my phone at all, just because it gets to be that like dopamine drip, right? Where, anytime your phone goes off, oh, like I got a new comment, let me check. And, it's just, it interrupts whatever you're doing at the time, and it's a constant thing. And so I do try to moderate how much time I spend on different platforms. And I'm admittedly not a great social media manager. I mean, a lot of my social media content, on Instagram and other platforms is kind of just repurposed YouTube content that I kind of chop up and put there. So I'm really not following all of the best practices for these platforms. And it's because you can't do all of the things. You have to kind of hone in on what really pushes the needle forward and really go hard after that, and then do what else you can elsewhere. But yeah, between that stuff and again, the stuff I do behind the scenes for like students of mine, whether they're students in my own studio or students for the Arrangers Academy, there's a whole community side of that where I'm giving people feedback and things like that. So yeah, all of that adds up throughout the week. You have to be really intentional about where your time goes. And, the challenges of working from home, and it's a easy just hop upstairs and say hi to the kids, or, there's just lots of distractions that everybody's now being thrown into. So right. I think everybody can relate to that at this point.
Talk about the legalities of building a career on cover music or rearranged music. I know that, we talked a few years ago that you were sort of struggling with sort of getting permission to produce and sell these tabs, and what are sort of the legalities there and some of the things that maybe you wish you'd have known 5 years ago?
Yeah. I'm really happy that I've been able to kind of coach some people on this now, and it's really rewarding for me to be able to do that, because I so desperately wanted somebody to be able to help me navigate those waters when I first started out, because it is stories about the worst case scenario of what happens when these studios, decide to make an example of somebody. So every platform, depending on what your purposes are, depending on what you're doing, it looks differently. So YouTube, for example, technically speaking, copyright law in many cases is vague and very blurred. And so like the whole fair use thing that people throw around a lot, like where you really draw the line, it's tough. And a lot of the law is antiquated in terms of it hasn't really kept up with the modern landscape of how easy it is to publish YouTube videos and things like that, and how difficult it is to get in touch with these studios. So technically to make an arrangement of somebody else's composition and publish that in the form of a video, technically speaking, I need permission from that copyright holder to do that. And the majority of the time, that's just not possible. Even if I was willing to spend whatever fee they requested, like a lot of people don't even have a system in place where people can reach out to them. So the way YouTube kind of handles it is you post the video, it either gets left alone, or they manually claim it if they see it, or there's some automations as well that can come into play, and they'll share ad revenue with you. In some cases, they take all the ad revenue because that is their right if they want to do that, since it is their composition. Or worst case scenarios, they can ask you to take or force you to take the video down. I've never heard of anybody getting sued over like a cover or anything like that. Although again, I guess it is within their right. So that's kind of how that works. Is YouTube, you just throw it up there, and for me, it's kind of 50-50 if it'll be left alone completely or if they'll share revenue is generally how it happens. For people who are more in the pop and rock, like things that aren't soundtrack based, it seems they're affected more because the music itself is the product. And so I guess you doing a cover of that is affecting their bottom line more than me, where for me, the soundtrack itself isn't necessarily the product, it's the game or the movie. So they don't seem to touch it as much. What was really tricky and what we talked about back in the day was the print licensing for sheet music and tabs. That's a nightmare to try to do by yourself. And I was in this kind of moral quandary because everybody at the time was just posting their stuff either for free, which seems innocent enough, but technically is still not allowed if it's an arrangement, and or they would still be charging for it, just kind of under the table kind of thing, just because it's not something that studios widely enforce or have the manpower to enforce, or it's not worth it for them. And so I wanted to do the right thing and make sure that, you know, these people who own this is their music. I wanted to make sure that if I was selling this, that they got their cut. You know, it was the right thing to do, but I couldn't do it. There were roadblocks everywhere. I couldn't reach out to these studios. I had this horrible experience with this one studio where I was trying to do the right thing this whole time, and then like it ended up flipping on its head, and they were gonna like threatening to sue me and all this stuff, and I almost quit everything right then and there because I was so discouraged. But so that was kind of a long uphill battle, and that's where my publisher Music Notes came into play, where it's this big platform that they have the infrastructure and they have the network in the industry where they handle all that licensing for me. They can reach out to these publishers and they have the relationships in place. And so for a cut, they handle all that side for me. So it's very hands off for me. It's the only way that I could do what I do legally. So you leave a lot of money on the table, admittedly, because you got more people, you know, more fingers in the pot. But for that peace of mind, and to know that I'm doing it the right way is more than worth it. But yeah, that is the tricky thing, because you are dealing with music that you don't own. Even if it is your own arrangement, there's always going to be more hands in the pot.
Yeah. Well, let's. I want to play one of your videos here for just a second. Hey, I do want to. We got a couple people here. Joshua Chu's here. He says, "What's up, Nathan?"
Oh, hey, man.
See, Angela Barbara is here. Says your songs are cool.
Thank
My buddy
you.
Todd Howard is here. Interviewed him the other day.
That's right.
All right, I want to play your Fortnite video real quick. We'll just do a little cut of this, and I think this is one that completely blew up on YouTube, and people will see why. I think it's the hair.
Yeah, that may be.
All right, yes, that's about a minute of your Fortnite video, and that thing's got like 12 million views or something, right, on YouTube?
Yeah, I think so. Last time I checked. Yeah, that was kind of the perfect storm of, you know, Fortnite was just this worldwide phenomenon, and you know, I was kind of one of the first people to have that idea of adapting it to guitar specifically like that. And, you know, catchy thumbnail and the hair, like all those things work together to just make this just kind of explode.
So what happens when something goes viral like that? How does that different from a video, like a typical video of yours that only gets like 100,000 views?
Well, that's the interesting thing that I learned through that is when it started taking off, I thought, you know what, I'm set. This is it. This is it for me. I'm coast. It's all downhill from here. I can just coast the rest of my career. Like this is going viral. This is how people make it. And you learn that maybe how things worked in the earlier days of YouTube, like 10 million views might have been much more of a game changer. But now I think it's people's attention spans are so, they just move so fast that the way that viral content works right now is it's just this real quick wave, and then things kind of normalize pretty quickly. And so there's definitely a lot of benefit to it. Like, I saw this ripple effect across everything, and it was really exciting, and there was lots of positives that came from it, but it's not necessarily the game changer that a lot of people who are constantly chasing that moment think that it's going to be. And that's kind of what I learned. And you can definitely extend the reach of that ripple effect by how you capitalize on that. And that's one thing too that I wasn't really equipped for. Like, I didn't really know how to best capitalize this, especially with the Fortnite thing in and of itself is just a phenomenon, because it turned out to be a little bit of a double-edged sword for me. There's a lot of positive that came out of it, but because Fortnite's audience skewed so young, that's not something that would have necessarily benefited me to really try to go hard and capitalize on. So I did end up making like 3 of those videos. So I did capitalize on that some, but I could have gone the route and done more and more and more and really tried to reach that demographic. But I knew that audience isn't going to be really invested in the majority of what else I like to do. And so for the sake of the long term and staying true to what I really wanted to do, I didn't push that as hard as I potentially could have. And I think that was the right call, because I do still see kind of the side effects of just those viral videos, is that a lot of the subscribers that came from those videos aren't interested in other stuff that I put out, because they are it's like they're young kids who aren't really invested in the guitar, or maybe they really aren't that into music yet, but they just loved Fortnite and they saw this video and it was cool, and so they subscribed maybe to see if there's more. So it was definitely a learning experience, as far as there's value to those like slow burning videos that don't take off, but that generate those more like-minded people, like the people who you are really your target demographic. Lots of times it's those, wide nets that you cast with more, viral type content.
Yeah. So I guess part of it is really sort of figuring out who your audience is, and who do you think your potential audience is? Who are the people that I could go after, and where do I find them, and how do I hook them? And then once I do, like, how do I keep them interested, right?
Right.
So, I think anybody who's successful in this business, thinks a lot about their audience. So what kind of demographic would you say is the beyond the guitar demographic?
I think the best way, like, if you build your career in a really intentional way that's going to really have legs, the best way to do that is to make your demographic like people that you would be friends with, like people that are like you, right? Because they're people that are interested in what you're interested in. So you're not constantly having to pander to what your audience likes versus what you like, right? They're more in line. And so, and I've found that there are a lot of people, like, of the diehards that I get to interact with on a regular basis, most of whom I haven't been able to meet in person, but I've been able to, just through our interactions, know that these are people, like, if we were to hang out in person, like, we would get along really, really well. And in this online space, we do get along really well and have developed kind of friendships because we like the same things, because I've been so careful about, for the majority of what I do, sticking to things that I like. So, my ideal audience is people that, generally around my age, so like 20s to early 30s, who grew up on the same like video games that I grew up on, and grew up on the same movies that I grew up on. And so we have that nostalgia built in. We understand that, I understand, like, if I cover this specific song, I know how it's going to like tug at their heartstrings, so I can arrange it in a way that really like digs that knife in to make that memorable emotional experience, because I understand that. And, people, again, that are either gamers or kind of big movie buffs, Star Wars, Marvel, Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, like all those fandoms. That's definitely my target.
Awesome. So who does your transcribing? Do you transcribe as you're arranging, or do you send your finished recording off to be transcribed?
Yeah, I really do everything. Up until very recently, I've started to hire out certain elements of what I do. But yeah, the transcribing I do all myself, because it's built into my arranging process. I like to notate as I go, because it's a way to, number one, kind of help visualize what I'm doing, to be able to see it on the paper or on the screen. Helps me, if there are tricky rhythms, or I'm trying to figure out how the melody fits within the context of this complex strumming pattern or something like that. To really write it all out helps me conceptualize it better, and it helps me really commit, because as I'm sure like as artists, we can just nitpick about every little detail about what we're doing, to the point that we never put anything out, because we're just refining and refining and refining. Whereas as I'm going, if I notate a certain section, I know, okay, that's done. I got to move on. And so it keeps me accountable to that, so I can actually meet, deadlines and put stuff out. So yeah, I notate it all myself in software that I use, and so that way I'm able to just send it off to my publisher just myself.
Nice. So talk about Patreon a little bit. I know that I've got some friends that are sort of new to the Patreon platform. You were one of the early adopters, I think. Talk about like how much work it is, but also sort of the reward that comes from that.
Yeah, it's an amazing tool, and it's one of many tools that people have now to be able to make a living in this online, music and arts world. It's just a matter of, I think the biggest advice that I would give kind of falls back to that concept of really building a relationship with this diehard audience first. It doesn't have to be big, but having these ride or die people before you set up something like Patreon. Like, I didn't set up my Patreon immediately. Like, I waited for a while until I knew that there were people that were really ready for it. And then you reach out to those people, because otherwise it is really hard. Like, I remember when I first started, I kind of did the math of like how many subscribers I had, and I was like, oh, well, if only 1% of people sign up for this, I'll be sitting pretty. And the reality is 1% won't. Like, it's a fraction of that. And so that's why it's important in investing in people that are really sold on what you're doing. But the way that you ideally want to set up a Patreon, so again, for people who don't know, it's a platform kind of like Kickstarter, except it's ongoing. So people commit to, pledging a certain dollar amount for every music video I release, and in return, you give them these tiered rewards. So if they pledge a certain dollar amount, they get early access, or this amount, they get access to private live streams and things like that. And you come up with your own rewards based on your content. And so ideally, you want to set it up in a way that falls in line kind of with what you would already be doing, so that it isn't a huge time crunch. Because, yeah, like you said, all these things add up. So one example is, for a while I've been doing private arranging live streams where people can kind of be a fly on the wall in my studio as I'm working on an arrangement, and I try to commentate on what I'm doing as well to give people some insights into the process. And a lot of people are really excited about that, even though it seems mundane for us because it's just our normal process. People who either are guitarists or musicians who want to learn from you, or people who aren't even musicians or guitarists who are just fascinated by seeing behind the curtain something like that's exciting for them, even though it's mundane for us. And doing something like that just I'd be doing that anyway, makes sense. So structuring rewards like that is really beneficial, and something that I definitely advise for people that are first looking into a platform like Patreon.
So that's one of your Patreon levels. If somebody donates $1 million a month or something, they get to watch the sausage be made.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's a good tier, that $1 million a month tier.
That's a good one. You just kind of one and done, you know?
Yeah, you only need one.
Yeah.
So I want to ask sort of maybe one more question, and you are a music school guy, and I've got a lot of friends that are music school people. What are some things that you wish they had taught you in music school that they didn't, that you're like, listen, every professional musician needs to know these things, and they so did not teach this in music school?
Right. Yeah. I mean, I had a great experience in both my undergrad and graduate degrees. So I can only speak to my schools. I imagine some schools are better at some of these things than others. So my schools did a lot of things really well, but they, especially for my undergrad, it very much felt like we were in our own little bubble. Grad school is a little bit better in terms of they had like a guitar festival where, you know, guitarists from all across the country would come there, and it really helped to open your eyes to, like, you know, you might have been thinking you were pretty hot stuff in your, you know, 50-some guitar major pool, but then you got 16-year-olds coming, you know, from, you know, the other side of the country who could play circles around you, and it really helps light a fire under you. So I think one thing is just really opening up, having things in place like that, whether it's festivals or ways to really make sure that students know what they're up against, in a sense. I don't necessarily like phrasing it like that, because it's competition to an extent, but, you know, I think it definitely can be more of a collaborative thing. But there does need to be that awareness, because a lot of times people coast through music school and think that they'll be fine getting out of there, and they realize that people aren't just waiting to hire them. So I think emphasis on that, emphasis on these practical skills. I had like one music business class that touched on some of this stuff, but a lot of it was more like, you know, doing your taxes as a musician and things like that, which, I mean, yeah, that's beneficial, but like talking about social media and this whole online environment was never really talked about. And I feel like that would have been incredibly valuable. I mean, in my case, I would love to like teach an arranging course. I'm sure some schools do that, but arranging, you know, doing cover songs. I mean, you made a living being in a cover. It's such a huge thing. And it's a way, even if somebody's not passionate necessarily about playing, you know, they really want to play their own music, you know, and compose. It's arranging can be a gateway thing for that. A lot of people pivot from, you know, playing covers or arrangements into making their own originals, because it's a great way to draw people in and get them invested in you, because you don't have to get them invested in you and your music at the same time. They're already kind of sold on the music that you're playing, because they have that history with it. And if you're able to perform that and add your own spin to it and create something new with it, that helps them buy into you. And then once they're sold on you, you can pivot into composition. And so I feel like arranging is a skill that wasn't really covered through like music theory and courses that I took. I had all the, you know, I was equipped with all the knowledge that I needed to be able to do it, but having a set curriculum would be nice. So yeah, I think those would be the big things. Some type of course that really explores just different career paths in music. Because my feeling when I was going through the program was, okay, you go through, you get these degrees, you go on and you get your doctorate, and then maybe you get like a university teaching gig, and you know, or you could go the competition route, competition tour, if you're like really nuts. Those were kind of the options, and, you know, both of which are really competitive, and, you know, people keep those teaching gigs until they can no longer do them. You know, they hold on to those for dear life. So I think showing that there are lots of different paths out there. I was talking about this with a buddy of mine the other day, that when I look back on it, honestly, I feel like on the outside looking in, the path that I took looked way more risky because I kind of forged my own way and stepped out on my own. But when I look back on it from my own personal experience, honestly, it feels like the more realistic option, because I was able to create opportunities for myself rather than, hoping that I could land one of these, one in a million teaching gigs or things like that. So I think people in music schools can get really discouraged feeling like they are up against it and that there aren't opportunities out there. But there really are limitless opportunities. Sometimes you just got to get creative with it and make your own. And so courses that facilitate that would be really valuable.
Have you kept in touch with any of your buddies through from undergrad and grad school?
Some, yeah, not as many as I would like. I was actually supposed to play a concert at my undergrad. They do like a featured alumni like recital every once in a while. And in March I was supposed to play a concert there, and that got canceled.
Weren't we all supposed to play some concerts?
Yeah, we were. Whew, yeah.
So what are they all doing? What are the guys that you went to school? What are they doing?
From my understanding, the majority are not doing music full time, at least. It's kind of, most of it's just from what I can glean through Facebook, because I have not kept up with a lot of people religiously, which is terrible. But
they should be following you.
What?
They should be following you.
Oh gosh, no. I ran into a buddy recently, and yeah, it was cool. I mean, we literally hadn't spoken probably since we graduated. He was in the guitar program, and he had said he'd been keeping up with my videos and everything. He was really kind, and yeah, he's currently, I think he's just kind of teaching some on the side, but he's got a day job, and that does feel like the norm, and it makes me even more grateful, that I'm able to make this work, because it really, yeah, I mean, a lot of people, and it's not to downplay that either, because a lot of people are very happy to take a different, pursue a different line of work and keep something that they do on and speak from, and I'm sure you've experienced this as well, although you're also, I mean, you're insane. I feel like you could also just eat, breathe, sleep music. But at least personally, there are times where when music is your career, there are certain things that you do kind of have sometimes struggle with that you wouldn't necessarily otherwise when it was just what you're doing for fun, right? When you have to do something instead of something that you just get to do. So there are some trade-offs there. And so some people are more than happy to like, oh, you know what, like, had a good run, I'm going to take this job here, and then I can just enjoy music on the side. And there's nothing wrong with that. So it does seem like the majority of people that I went to school with are not doing music, at least in a full-time capacity. If they are, it's mostly, yeah, I think there's some that are teaching, like high school gigs and teaching private lessons, and I think some that have gotten some college gigs, which is awesome. So,
yeah. Well, I will say, man, before we get out of here, I want to respect your time, because I know you got stuff to do. But one of the things you can always tell when a guy's a baller, especially a musician, because you go through his comments section and there's nobody. Maybe you're better at curating these things than I am, but there's nobody in your comments section who's like, "Oh, you suck, you're terrible." They're like, everybody's like, this guy's amazing. It's incredible.
It's because I spend 20 hours a week that's where all my time goes. I'm just deleting comments. No, it's weird. It's actually weird. Honestly, I kind of feel the opposite. I feel that I'm doing something wrong because I don't have enough hate. I feel like once you start getting hate, that's when you're really like, you're really striking a nerve. You're doing something right. I don't get a lot of hate, and it's weird. I do get some. The most that I get, which is funny, and I actually did. This was around the Fortnite era. I blocked certain words on my channel because I did get so sick of seeing this. which is just kind of funny looking back. And I changed it after the fact because I was like, why do I care about this? And I was like, comments are engagement, which goes to the algorithm. Like, it's all good. So bring on the hate, like just more, more engagement. I'll take it. But it was every time somebody would comment like, this is really cool, but oh, cut your nails. Right. So for those of you who don't know, you know, classical guitarists, we're blessed with these long, beautiful fingernails. You know, it's a gift and a curse. But people who aren't familiar with the classical guitar world look at that and they're like, ugh, what's up with that? And they don't necessarily realize that that's a crucial part of our technique.
Yeah, that violin's really cool, but what's up with your bow? Why do you have that thing with the hair on it?
Yeah, like cut your bow hair, man. Trim it down. Yeah, so I got so sick of those comments that I like blocked the words cut and clip and like nails on my channel. But then I went back, I was like, why do I care about this? And I changed it. Every once in a while I get people hating on like why I charge for my sheet music, and like art should be free and knowledge should be shared, and
yeah, so should mortgages.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, reject your next paycheck and then come back to me.
Yeah.
But yeah, you definitely do have to have a bit of a thick skin and also not take yourself too seriously. One thing that I kind of a pet peeve of mine in the online world is when you see people who don't have the time to be able to respond to every comment, right? But they take the time to respond to the hate comments, right? So and the only time you see them engaging with their audience is engaging with the trolls and the people that are being hateful. And I look at that, I'm like, if I don't have the time to respond to all these wonderful, beautiful people who are saying kind things to me, why am I going to take the time to just because maybe, you know, I feel like I need to defend myself or you hurt my feelings? Like, why am I going to take the time to engage with this one person who is hating on me? And so that's always, yeah, definitely an encouragement of mine is just let them shout into the void. Like, you don't give them any attention and eventually they go away. And if they don't go away, you can just know that every time they comment, that's an engagement metric that's boosting your video in the algorithm and they're helping you out.
Well, and half the time, if you give it a minute, your fans are going to drag them anyway.
Yeah. So honestly, that's actually the funny thing too. Now, anytime somebody does give me a hate comment, I give it like a thumbs up so that it ranks higher in the comments. So it's likely that more people will see it so that they will respond. So then it'll be and it's all. So yeah, you just got to make the haters work for you.
That's awesome. Well, listen, dude, this has been a lot of fun. Tell people where they can find you. I've got your website and stuff up here on the screen, but where do you want people to go to find your stuff?
Oh, thanks, man. Yeah, they just anywhere beyond the guitar. I mean, the main platform for me is YouTube. So you can YouTube Beyond the Guitar. All socials, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter is all Beyond the Guitar. And
I'm gonna go here. I put up on the screen a drag of your YouTube channel. You can just see all these videos that he's put up on the screen. Like, and it's everything, man, from Star Wars to Pixar to Minecraft to Gladiator to Lion King to Spider-Man to Toy Story. My God, there's so much, dude.
Yeah, cover a little bit of ground.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for doing this. We're going to watch a little video of yours on the way out, and y'all go have a good day, and I'm gonna enjoy the rest of this frosty beverage.
There you go. Yeah, it was a pleasure chatting, man. Always good to catch up.
Yeah, likewise.